My name is Jasmine Calloway. When my own brother put me in my place, in front of the entire family, and my grandfather wiped away his laughter forever, today, I am going to tell you that story, the one that changed my entire life. I am Jasmine Calloway, and I am about 26 years old. And this story begins on that evening. Until exactly 3 years ago, I was just an ordinary girl who understood the importance of her family name, but never knew the truth behind that name. The Calloway family name was spoken with respect in our city. My grandfather, Robert Calloway, had started an apprenticeship foundation 50 years ago that gave free technical education and employment opportunities to underprivileged children. That foundation had changed thousands of lives, and our family's identity was built not just on wealth, but on giving back to society. My father, Martin Calloway, was grandfather's eldest son, but could never adopt his mindset. He always considered the foundation a burden. He thought it was just a way to waste money. My mother, Suzanne, also had no attachment to this family's traditions. She only wanted status and a luxury life. And then there was my elder brother, Damon Calloway, the apple of his mother's eye and the pride of his father. From childhood, Damon was taught that he was the true heir of the Calloway name, and that I was just a girl who held no importance. In childhood, this difference wasn't so visible to me, but as I grew older, I began to understand that in my parents' eyes, I was always second. They were always in a hurry to get through my birthday. But Damon's birthday was celebrated for an entire week. On my academic achievements, they would just give a faint smile, whereas even the smallest thing Damon did would be met with applause. When I topped my school, my mother said, "That's good. Now focus on Damon's preparation." And when Damon barely passed, a party was thrown at home. Grandfather was the only person who always made me feel equal. Whenever he came to our house, he would lift me into his arms and say, "Jasmine, you are the most precious jewel of this family. You are the true light of the Calloway name." I didn't understand the meaning of his words then. I simply remained happy in his love. Grandfather would often take me to his foundation and introduce me to the children there. He would say, "This is the real legacy. This is the foundation of hard work and service, and one day you will understand it." When I turned 18, I started working at the foundation alongside my studies. I would teach children, counsel them, and help design new courses. Grandfather was growing old and wanted me to gradually take on responsibility. But my parents and Damon did not like this at all. Damon was always jealous of me. He wanted to shut down the foundation and sell its land because that property, situated right in the middle of the city, was worth crores. Damon had done an MBA, or rather, bought a degree with Dad's money. He considered himself a business genius. But the truth was that he had started 2 startups with his friends, and both had sunk. Yet, no one at home ever said anything to him. Instead, I was told, "Jasmine, you are wasting your time in the foundation. You should also build a career like Damon." I stayed silent because I knew there was no point in raising my voice. But no one had the courage to say these things in front of Grandfather. Grandfather was the founder and chairman of the foundation, and the biggest decision in his will was about who would ultimately receive this legacy. Now I take you to that evening that changed everything. That evening was Damon's 27th birthday party. A grand celebration was arranged on the big lawn of our old house. There were about 100 guests, relatives, Dad's business partners, and some of Damon's friends. There was expensive lighting all around, flower decorations, and the notes of a band. My mother had ordered a designer suit for Damon, and Dad had gifted him a new car. I had given him a watch, which he put aside without even looking at it. That evening, I was wearing a silver-colored sari that I had to buy myself because Mom hadn't picked up anything for me. I was feeling strange, but I was trying to stay happy. My friend Aria was with me, and she understood my state. She held my hand and said, "Jasmine, just bear a few more hours." The dinner table was set. Everyone was laughing and talking. Just then, my father called Damon to give a speech. Damon picked up a glass of champagne and went up on the stage. He was wearing a black suit, and there was a strange glint in his eyes. I looked at grandfather, who was sitting quietly in a corner. His gaze was fixed on me. Damon began his speech. He thanked our parents, then said, "Today, I want to say something about my family and the importance of the Calloway name." Everyone applauded. Then he pointed towards me and said, "My sister Jasmine is present here. She is very simple and kind-hearted. But I want to say this in front of everyone. She is not worthy of this family's name." In that moment, the entire lawn fell into silence. It felt as if someone had struck my heart with a hammer. The ground slipped away from beneath my feet. I stood there, rooted to the spot. The guests started looking at one another. My mother nodded with a faint smile, and my father looked at Damon with pride, as if he were doing something heroic. Continuing, Damon said, "The Calloway name is for those who understand business, who can run the world. Jasmine just spends her days in a small charity project. She has no understanding of property, no understanding of investment. She cannot carry our legacy forward. In fact, she is a burden on this name. And today, in front of everyone, I declare that I am the future of the Calloway family. Only me." His speech ended, and a few people hesitantly clapped. My friend Arya's face turned red with anger. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I didn't cry because I knew that if I broke down there, he would win. I looked towards grandfather. He was sitting absolutely still. There was a strange, faint smile on his lips, not one of weakness at all. That smile was like the calm before a storm. The very next moment, grandfather picked up his walking stick and began walking slowly towards the stage. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Damon spread his arms and said, "Grandfather, come. I know you two will agree with what I said." Grandfather did not reply. He went straight to the microphone and took it in his hands. Grandfather's voice was deep and resonant. He said, "Today my grandson Damon is showcasing his wisdom. He has told everyone that the worth of the Calloway name is only money and property. Well done, Damon. You have shown your thinking. Now let me show you, and everyone sitting here, something." He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket and signaled the technician present there. Some documents started appearing on the big screen. They were drafts of emails and contracts containing negotiations from Damon's side to sell the foundation's land to a builder company. Damon's signatures were also there, and it was written to the builder that the deal would be finalized after grandfather's passing or by sidelining him in some way. Damon's face turned pale. He panicked and said, "This is all false. It's forged." But grandfather opened the next email, in which Damon had written to his friend, "The old man will retire soon, and we can easily push a foolish girl like Jasmine out of the way any time. After that, all the property will be ours." Whispering began among the guests. My father's face was worth watching. He came forward to intervene, but grandfather raised his hand and stopped him. In his loudest voice, he said, "This is the lamp of our house. He wants to sell the legacy that I have built with my blood and sweat, the legacy that feeds thousands of families. And he is doing this shameful act just to humiliate his sister, so that people's attention is diverted from his own conspiracies." Then grandfather looked at me, extended his hand, and called me onto the stage. I walked up there on trembling legs. Grandfather held my hand and declared in front of everyone, "This is Jasmine, my true heir. The hard work this girl has put into the foundation over the last 8 years cannot be measured by any degree. She has only served, never asked for a single penny. Today, I announce that my entire estate, the responsibility of the foundation, and the legacy of the Calloway name are handed over to Jasmine. Damon is disowned from this family and this name." Damon screamed, No! This cannot happen. You can't do this. I am your grandson, the real heir. Without blinking, Grandfather replied, "The real heir is one who protects the legacy, not sell it. For the audacity you have shown today, in front of everyone, you must pay the price. Go, now you have no right in this house." That night, all of Damon's boasting and laughter turned to dust. Grandfather had truly wiped the smile off his face. My parents stood shocked and helpless. My mother said to me, "Jasmine, why are you doing this to your brother?" For the first time, I answered, "I have done nothing, Mom. This is the result of his own deeds. You never even accepted me in the first place." The party ended. One by one, the guests started leaving. Many congratulated me, while others looked at Damon with contempt. Damon fled from there. But his troubles were only just beginning, because someone had recorded that evening's video and posted it on social media. In the next few days, that video went viral. People called Damon arrogant and greedy. Everyone came to know about the Callaway Foundation and how Damon wanted to sell the land and end it. The builder company also distanced itself from Damon and gave a statement that they had no knowledge of this conspiracy. Damon's business partner also labeled him a fraud and separated from him. My father tried to talk to me, but I made it clear that I would no longer follow his orders. Together with Grandfather, I strengthened the foundation's work. We started new courses, launched a digital education program, and reached out to children in villages and remote areas. The foundation's budget tripled because people began donating openly now. Damon did not give up. He took the legal route and challenged Grandfather's will in court. He filed a case claiming that Grandfather was mentally unsound and that I had manipulated him. He tried to present fake evidence and paid some old staff members to testify in his favor. But Grandfather had already prepared everything. We had every email, every bank transaction, and recordings of every meeting where Damon had conspired. Grandfather's lawyer presented the evidence one by one, and Damon's lies were exposed in front of everyone. The court dismissed the case and ordered Damon to pay a heavy fine. All his savings and the money he had taken from Dad sank in this lawsuit. Meanwhile, my mother's and father's attitude slowly began to change. Father realized how much he had neglected his daughter behind Damon. He came to me and said, "Jasmine, forgive me. I have made a huge mistake." I just said, "Dad, there is no need for forgiveness. Just support the foundation's work now. This is our real identity." Convincing Mom was a bit harder because she was blinded by her love for Damon. But one day, when Damon asked even her for money and verbally abused her when she refused, her eyes were opened. She came to me crying and said, "I used to think only a son is everything, but you gave me respect even when I wasn't worthy of it." I hugged her because I didn't seek revenge. I sought reformation. Damon's life was completely ruined. He left the city and went somewhere else. But even there, his past kept haunting him. He couldn't get any job because whenever a background check happened, the news of his conspiracy and the court case surfaced. He started doing odd jobs to survive. I felt pity for his condition, but I knew he was reaping exactly what he had sown. As time passed, I took the foundation to new heights. We opened centers in other cities and provided employment to thousands of youths. Grandfather was now very old, but his spirit was still young. He used to tell me, "Jasmine, I have no worries now because I have handed my legacy over to the right hands. You are truly the pride of the Callaway name." One day, I was sitting with Grandfather in the old campus of the foundation. I asked him, "Grandfather, didn't you feel angry when you heard Damon's words that night?" He smiled and said, "I was very angry, but I had come to know his truth years ago. I was just waiting for the right moment to reveal his real face in front of everyone. And when he had the audacity to insult you, I thought, no more now. Grandfather gave me a diary in which he had written the experiences of his life and the story of starting the foundation. There was one line in it that I can never forget. A person's worth is decided by their deeds, not by their name. No matter how great the arrogance, one day it is bound to crumble, and the truth always wins. I learned many things in my life. Education isn't only found in schools, but in every difficult moment when we stand up against injustice. I saw how greed and ego destroyed a person, and how patience and honesty earned me a respect that was never meant to come my way. Now when I look back, I am astonished at how much I endured and how silently I fought. There was a fire inside me, a fire that Grandfather fanned. If he had not been there, perhaps I would have been crushed by my brother's tyranny. But fate had something else in store. This is not a story of revenge, but of justice. This story shows that when favoritism and arrogance take the place of love and equality in a family, its end is very bad. My brother Damon is still alive somewhere, and perhaps fighting with himself. I have never contacted him, but I pray that he understands the truth and changes, because the real victory lies in forgiving and moving forward. My friend Arya once said to me, "Jasmine, you've lived a complete film story." I laughed and said, "Not a film story, a true story." And if someone can find courage in their own life after hearing this true story, then my pain will have been worthwhile. The Callaway Foundation is still flourishing. I go there every morning and forget everything when I see the children's smiles. Grandfather is no longer with us, but his teaching is written on every wall. I sit in his chair and walk the path he showed me. One day, a little girl asked me, "Dee, were you never scared when your brother said such bad things to you in front of everyone?" I placed my hand on her head and said, "I was very scared, but you should not run away from fear. You should face it. When your heart is clean and your intentions are noble, the entire universe helps you." This whole journey was a test for me, one in which I found myself. I realized that respect is not asked for, it is earned. I never thought of taking revenge on my brother. Instead, I made history with my work. That is the true revenge. Now, whenever someone calls me by the name Callaway, I feel proud. But along with that, I also feel a sense of responsibility, because this name is not just that of a family, but a symbol of thousands of hopes. I promise that I will never let the dignity of this name be tarnished. The purpose of telling you this story is just this: never determine your worth through someone else's eyes. If you are truthful, then one day the world will recognize your worth. And those who try to bring you down will themselves disappear from the pages of history. Jasmine Callaway, even today, sit in the courtyard of that same foundation teaching children, and I think about what a strange path life has shown me. Thanks to the very brother who wanted to erase me, I emerged shining even brighter, while he turned to dust. Perhaps this is destiny. After every darkness, there is a dawn, and the fall of every arrogant person is certain. Just keep faith and patience. The rest will happen on its own. Now I bid you goodbye, but remember that this story bearing the name Callaway will continue to inspire you forever. Jasmine's courage, Grandfather's bravery, and Damon's downfall. These three together form a lesson that should sink into everyone's heart. If you like this story, then help those around you who are suffering injustice. And yes, always teach your children that humanity and hard work are the greatest religion. But saying all this is as easy as it is. Walking that path was just as difficult. After Grandfather's announcement, my life had completely changed. However, the change was not only external. A storm was also raging inside me. On one hand, there was the happiness of victory, and on the other, the sorrow of losing my own. Because no matter how much injustice had been done, Damon was my brother, and the rift that had formed in my relationship with my parents kept me awake at night. The morning after that historic night, when I woke up, silence had spread throughout the house. Damon had packed his bags and gone somewhere. Father was locked in his room, and Mother was sitting in the courtyard, silently shedding tears. When I placed a cup of tea near Mother, she didn't even look at me. At that moment, I understood that this battle between hatred and love was going to be a very long one. The first few weeks were very difficult. I had taken over the foundation's work, but managing the family was far more challenging. Father did not speak to me for many days. He kept grieving the departure of his son, but did not ask me what I had been through. I didn't insist either. I just kept doing my work and would go to Grandfather to lighten my heart. Grandfather now met me every day and guided me on every aspect of the foundation. He used to say that leadership does not just mean making decisions, but also enduring criticism and still continuing on the right path. He told me how, years ago when he had started the foundation, many people had mocked him. Rich people would ask, "Why are you wasting money on the poor?" But Grandfather listened to no one. And today, that very foundation had become the backbone of thousands of lives. One day, I went with Grandfather to meet his old friend and the foundation's first lawyer, Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma was 80 years old, but his memory and sharp mind were no less than any young man's. He said to me, "Child, I have seen your grandfather when he didn't have a penny. He started by holding classes in a small room. I remember, to get the government recognition, your grandfather even sold his watch so that the students' fees could be paid." Hearing this, my eyes filled with tears, because Damon had been plotting to sell that very foundation's land. Mr. Verma told me another important thing. He said that Damon had not only tried to sell the land, but had also prepared some documents through which he wanted to change the foundation's name and turn it into a private company. That means his plan was not just to make money, but to erase Grandfather's entire legacy. Knowing this, whatever little sympathy I had left for Damon vanished completely. Meanwhile, the old staff working at the foundation gave me their full support. Mrs. Sharma, who had been the foundation's accountant for the last 20 years, called me one day and said, "Jasmine dear, I want to tell you that Damon had tried to get me on his side too. He had lured me with double salary and a flat so that I would manipulate the accounts and show that the foundation was running at a loss. But I refused, because your grandfather gave me a job at a time when no one even asked about me." Hearing Mrs. Sharma's words, I fell into thought. Damon had woven a web of complete conspiracy. He had tried to exploit every weak aspect of the foundation, but he forgot that loyalty and respect cannot be bought. This was the thing that Grandfather had earned through years of service, and which Damon could not achieve with his money. Gradually, time passed. To make the foundation's work more transparent, I launched an online portal where every donor could see where and how their money was being spent. This step was also necessary because before leaving, Damon had incited many people by saying that there was a scam in the foundation. When the online records were presented before everyone, all his allegations fell flat, and people's trust in the foundation increased even more than before. During this time, I met a journalist named Rohan, who wanted to cover the foundation's story. Rohan said to me, "Ma'am, your story has the power to inspire people." At first, I refused because I felt it was not right to bring family matters out in the open. But then Grandfather explained that if your story can help another daughter earn respect in her home, then it must be told. Rohan made a very good documentary titled Callaway, The Legacy of Truth. It showed everything from Grandfather's struggle to my journey and Damon's conspiracy. When this documentary was released, the number of viewers reached millions. Many girls messaged me, saying that they have started raising their voices for their rights in their families. The peace I felt hearing this cannot be expressed in words. But all this was not so easy. Damon was still continuing his antics from somewhere. He created fake accounts on social media and started posting false things against the foundation and me. Sometimes he would write that Jasmine had poisoned grandfather and killed him. Other times that the foundation's money was being sent abroad. Initially, reading all this made me very angry. But later I learned to ignore it, because the truth was with me, and it couldn't be hidden by any lie. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Damon's voice on the other end. In a very subdued and broken voice, he said, "Jasmine, I am very tired. Forgive me." I paused for a moment, because I had never heard Damon speak in this manner. But then, all his plots flashed through my mind. I said, "Damon, saying sorry only matters when you realize your mistake. Do you really think you did wrong?" He fell silent. Then he said, "I don't understand what to do. I have no one." I replied, "When you had everything, you rejected me. Now I can help you, but only on the condition that you confess your mistakes in front of everyone and withdraw every legal action against the foundation." Damon said, "Let me think and tell you," and hung up. After that, no call came from Damon for many months. I too stopped worrying about him and began focusing on my work. In the meantime, the foundation was nominated for an international award. This was a very big thing, because no Indian social organization had ever received that award before. Grandfather and I went abroad and won that award there. At the award ceremony, when my name was called on stage, I gestured for grandfather to walk with me. He refused at first, but I held his hand and said, "Grandfather, this honor is yours. I am just your shadow." He smiled and came on stage with me. There were tears in his eyes, and in his speech he said, "I have seen a lot in my life, but seeing my granddaughter receive this honor today makes me feel that all my hard work has been successful." When we returned, there was a grand welcome for us at the airport. Hundreds of people stood with flowers and placards. Mrs. Sharma, the foundation's children, and my friend Arya were all present. But the biggest surprise was that my parents were also standing there. As soon as father saw me, he hugged me and said, "Jasmine, I am proud of you." I asked, "Papa, you here?" Wiping his eyes, father said, "Child, I have made many mistakes in my life, but today I promise that from now on, you come first for me." Mother also came to me crying and said, "I never understood you, Jasmine, but today you have taught me the true meaning of being a mother." At that moment, I felt that perhaps life had given me everything I had ever wanted. But the story was not over yet, because the final chapter of Damon's story was still to come. One day, a special delivery suddenly arrived at my office. It contained a letter and some papers. The letter was written by Damon. He had written, "Jasmine, I know there is no forgiveness for what I did to you. But over the last few months, I have thought a lot about my life. I have lost everything, but the biggest loss is that I lost myself. I now live far from that city, in a small village, teaching the children there. Perhaps this is my punishment, and perhaps this is also the path to my liberation. Along with this letter, I am sending all those papers that I had submitted in court. I am withdrawing all cases. And yes, one more thing. You truly deserve the name Calloway. Perhaps you always did." After reading the letter, I sat quietly for a long time. Tears were streaming from my eyes, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of a relief that had been suppressed in my chest for years. I showed that letter to grandfather. He read it and then looked at me and said, "See, Jasmine, truth and patience always win. You have received the fruit of what you endured. And look, Damon has also realized his mistake. This is the real victory. I found out Damon's address, and one day suddenly reached his village. He was teaching mathematics to children in a small school. He froze when he saw me. Fear and shame were clearly visible in his eyes. I stepped forward and said, "Damon, I have come to forgive you. To forgive you completely." He began sobbing and fell at my feet. I lifted him up and hugged him. In that moment, the bitterness that had accumulated for years between the two siblings washed away in an instant. I told Daman that he didn't need to stay in this village. If he wanted, he could come back to the city and join the foundation. But he refused. He said, "Jasmine, I have lost a lot in my life, but after coming here, I have found peace for the first time. I will stay here and teach these children. This is my atonement." I accepted his decision, but made him promise that he would definitely come home once every month. After that, time seemed to fly, as if it had grown wings. The foundation's work began to progress by leaps and bounds. I opened a foundation center in Daman's village too, so that the children there could receive better education. Damon became the head of that center and worked so hard that within 2 years, that center came to be regarded as the best in the entire district. My parents had also changed by now. Father took retirement from his business and began giving all his time to the foundation. Mother started a new project for women's empowerment, in which poor women were given training in sewing, embroidery, and computers, so that they could stand on their own feet. Mother often used to say that she was doing penance for what she had done to her daughter by serving these women. Grandfather had grown very old now, but the sparkle in his eyes was still intact. One day he called me to his side and said, "Jasmine, I have added one more thing to my will." I asked what, and he smiled and said, "I have written that the post of chairman of the foundation will be given only to the one who serves with a true heart, and I have full faith that you are that person." I touched his feet and said, "Grandfather, I will never let your trust be tarnished." Time passed, and I decided to give the lessons of my life the form of a book. I wrote a book titled When Pride Fell, A True Story. In this book, I wrote everything: my childhood, the insults, the struggle, Daman's conspiracies, grandfather's support, and the victory that came in the end. This book became a bestseller and sold millions of copies across the country and abroad. I donated all the earnings from the book to the foundation. One day I received a letter from a reader, which said, "Jasmine G, after reading your story, I took the decision to leave my husband, who used to beat me every day and tell me that I am good for nothing. Today, I am starting a new life with my 2 children." Reading that letter made me realize that my story is not just my own. It is the story of every person who has suffered injustice and risen up. Now I am 40 years old, and when I look back, it feels as if life has given me everything I had never even dreamt of. 15 centers of the foundation are running across the country. Every year, more than 10,000 children get trained here and secure good jobs. My brother Damon still lives in that same village and has made that entire area self-reliant in terms of education. He says, "I have lost a lot, but that loss taught me how to live a real life. My parents are no longer in this world, but before leaving, they had apologized to me again and again. Mother worked at the Women's Center till her last breath, and father donated half his wealth to the foundation. Grandfather left long ago, but his teachings and his love are still present in every decision of mine. To this day, no one sits on his chair because that chair is not just a piece of furniture, but a symbol of the values on which this whole legacy stands. Often, during orientation, I tell my story to new children. I tell them that no matter how many difficulties come in life, if you stay firm on the path of truth, victory will be yours one day. I also tell them grandfather's story when he sold his watch to pay the children's fees, and I say that real wealth is not what lies in your bank, but the happiness you can feel in the lives of others. Today, as I sit here writing all this, my eyes have become moist again. But these are not tears of pain. These are tears of pride, gratitude, and a peace that comes when you know that you have lived your life in the truest sense. So, my only request to you is this: never let anyone else decide your worth. If someone thinks you are less capable, that is the poverty of their thinking, not yours. Become so skilled at what you do that the world is compelled to look up to you. And yes, respect your elders, but at the same time protect your self-respect. Because a person who cannot respect themselves, how will they respect others? I, Jasmine Calloway, bid you farewell at this final stretch of the story. But remember, whenever you feel that the world is against you, recall this story. A girl whom her own brother labeled as worthless. That same girl is now transforming the lives of thousands. So keep faith, work hard, and stand with the truth. Everything else will fall into place on its own. Thank you for listening to this story. If you have received even a little inspiration from my words, please do share it. Perhaps your sharing might bring light into someone else's life. Until then, take care and recognize your true worth. The story does not end here. Further chapters about unexplored aspects of Jasmine's life, new projects of the Foundation, the saga of Damon's complete rehabilitation, and the preparations to pass the legacy to the next generation can be continued upon request.